Hi there, everybody, and welcome to my presentation, GP Teaching, Embracing Generative AI and Empowering Autonomous Language Learning at the 10th RILAE Lab session. My name is Thomas Stringer, and I'll be giving the talk today. I'm sorry I couldn't be here in person, but hopefully it'll be a good talk anyway. A little about me. I've been a English language teacher in Japan for about 15 years, and I'm currently a full-time instructor of English at Kwansei Gakuin University in Hyogo, and I'm also a doctoral student at the University of St Andrews in the UK, and I'm really interested in learner and teacher development, focusing on autonomy a lot. So the kind of theme of today's lab session is about the intersection of technology and learner autonomy, and systematic reviews have kind of isolated technologies as one tool for promoting personalized learning and connecting not only learner autonomy, but language learner autonomy as well, and that institutional learning environments can be the bridge between the classroom and more self-directed learning or language learning in more informal settings as well. So a little bit about me and my learning context. As I said, I teach at a Japanese university, and one course I'm in charge of is a multidisciplinary studies program course. There you can see the entry requirements for the course on the screen. It's a once-a-week class. It's a credit-bearing elective, although these are mandatory for English minors, and these are content-based courses. And the main purpose of these MS courses is to prepare learners for academic learning styles that they might encounter in higher education outside of Japan. And I teach two of these classes, one on the Culture and Society track about Great Britain, and the other on the Language and Communication track about slang. Okay, and so explicit self-directed learning strategy instruction is kind of one part of both sets of courses. And you can see on the left example of some of the strategies that we look at and explicitly practice in class, like active note-taking, actively reviewing, right, planning when and how you're going to study, making your own summaries of lecture notes, that kind of thing, looking for additional resources or support when you need it. So there are a lot of different strategies going on here, but the one I want to pick out and focus on today in this short presentation is model comparison, in particular model answer comparison for tests, knowledge check tests, okay, and then also rewriting answers in line with those models, okay. So a little bit about the structure of the courses rather in total. You can see here, so each class ends with a lecture whose purpose is content and language input, and it targets academic skills like content knowledge and listening, note-taking, and also particular self-directed learning strategies like noticing the gap or students asking for help if they need it, kind of interrupting the lecture. Okay, and then that's the end of the first class, and then outside of the class there's a reading on the same theme, and then that's also about building content knowledge and building academic skills like predicting, clarifying, and so on, and their own target self-directed learning strategies like model comparison, right, or self-assessment. At the next class, at the beginning, there's a knowledge check test, which is an open book 10-minute test, 70 words. And there's a rubric provided, which we went through at the start of each course. And it's graded. The response is part of their grade for the course, around 4% per response. And this is done by an online platform. So in terms of the academic skills, this is knowledge synthesis, and also how to structure academic writing and academic language use. And in terms of the self-directed learning strategies that's targeting, it's planning, right, how and when to study best for these tests, noticing gaps between your knowledge and, restructuring that, rewriting it so that you understand it better, searching for supplementary information, and evaluating your own performance by comparing it to the model, right? And there are other activities you can see below, like collaborative discussions, and then the cycle repeats again. But we're going to focus on the knowledge check test today. So today's focus is on AI, generative AI, and the role that it could play in this kind of instruction. So on the left side, you can see a prompt related to content from one of the classes, right, where it says the question is, and then underneath you can see the rubric, the scoring rubric that's used in the course. Okay, and the prompt is asking this generative AI platform, ChatGPT, to generate a response of approximately the right length that would get a score, a top score. Okay, so these are checked by me, the instructor, but then they are reported back to the learners, as you can see on the right side, and then individualized feedback is given in addition, but the model answer is there in red. Okay, so when ChatGPT boomed at the end of 2022, last year, I was kind of really interested to see how it can be used, right? So that systematic review we mentioned before already identified the role of technology in promoting self-directed learning, but what's going to be the difference with AI? Is it going to help? So I quizzed the learners. So about the whole course, we got 15 students completed the course as of this year, and 10 responded anonymously to my request for feedback, and 90% reported that they felt that they could study more autonomously or independently after taking the class. Although one learner mentioned that they didn't really engage in too much independent study due to lack of time, most of the learners mentioned things like they were better able to focus on things like writing, vocabulary, language use. They improved their motivation, and they were better able to independently review class content, deepen their understanding, and importantly, reduce their reliance on the teacher by being able to work at their own pace. Right? So that was encouraging. And then in particular, focusing on these model answers. So in that survey, the responses, 100% of responders said that they looked at the model answer at least once each week on these weekly tests, and especially they paid attention to it when they didn't get a full score, right? So on that scoring rubric, there was 100 or 50% and 0, okay? And they all reported that the written response model answers were useful to them. And the main themes that came out of this feedback from them was that they understood more their core concepts being addressed. They focused more on paragraph level writing structure, sentence level writing structure, general vocabulary use, academic vocabulary use by comparing their answer to the model, and also in terms of the content, like identifying points where they hadn't understood correctly and then going away and reworking their responses. Although one learner did mention that they simply read it, I was encouraged that the majority of students reported engaging in these additional learning strategies by comparing their own work to these AI-generated responses, model answers, right, to the written response, open check tests, right? And then another encouraging bit of data that came out of the course was I had access to the kind of pre-generative AI era course information, and when I compared it to the current cohort, I noticed that the completion rate dramatically jumped for the courses, and the dropout rate of the courses sank as well, and also the number of non-submissions for the written response check test also fell. Right, so I was encouraged by this because it meant that more students were able to continue engaging with the course. So in general, I was actually pretty happy with this. It seemed to chime with the literature that this activity was able to kind of bridge that gap between the classroom and the outside, the informal learning spaces, and it was able to scaffold these learners' ability to focus on language, kind of independently understand the degree to which they've got the content of the course and how aware they are of when they're applying a learning strategy effectively or not. And it seemed to have actually not just increased their awareness of these strategies, but actually impacted how much they used them as well. Right? There were other examples from other areas, of course, but of course today we're just focusing on these written responses and the model answers. Of course, there are going to be limitations to using this kind of technology in the classroom. One is around the issue of consent. Once these information goes into the generative AI system, it's kind of a black box. We don't really know what's going to happen with it. Can learners truly understand what that means for them in the long term? Also, bigger picture term issues about is it worth doing this kind of instruction if everybody's just going to be turning to AI things? But those are bigger issues than can be addressed in the individual classroom, of course. So yeah, I think that's about it for this very, very short presentation. Sorry, I had to rush everything. There are my references. But yeah, hopefully that was interesting for you. And if you found this worthwhile, then feel free to get in touch. I'd love to hear what you think. Okay, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.